Welcome to another story from the r/Bestof subreddit, where Redditors share their wildest, weirdest, and most unforgettable relationship experiences. Today, I'm sharing my own story, something I never thought I'd talk about publicly, but decided to finally get off my chest. This is the story of how my boyfriend became obsessed with Queen Elsa from Disney's Frozen and wanted to turn me into her. I'm 24 years old, and at the time, I was dating a guy named Jake. We met in college, and at first, everything seemed pretty normal. Jake was funny, kind, and sweet, exactly the boyfriend I thought I'd been waiting for. We shared common interests, got along well, and everyone thought we were a good match. But soon I noticed something strange. Jake had an obsession, one that started small but quickly grew into something that took over our relationship. It wasn't just a casual liking of a movie or a character. It was a full-blown fixation on Elsa, the icy queen from Frozen. At first, I thought it was just a harmless phase, like how some people get super into superheroes or sports teams. But it wasn't that simple. Little did I know, this obsession would shape every part of our time together. And honestly, it would test my patience and boundaries like never before. So, here's what happened when my boyfriend decided he wanted me to become Elsa. Jake's fascination with Elsa started pretty innocently. We watched Frozen together a few times when the movie first came out. I thought it was a cute story, and honestly, the songs were catchy. Jake seemed to really like the music. He'd hum Let It Go under his breath and quote some of the lines in a joking way. At first, I thought it was funny. He was the kind of guy who liked to be silly and playful, so this felt like part of that. Then he started buying some Frozen merchandise. Nothing too crazy at first. Just a couple of t-shirts and maybe a poster for his bedroom wall. He loved singing along to the songs in the car, and I didn't mind it at all. I thought, hey, everyone has their interests. But slowly, things started to change. Jake would bring up Elsa in conversations more and more. Sometimes he'd compare me to her, saying I reminded him of Elsa's strength or beauty. I wasn't sure if he was being serious or just teasing, but I appreciated the compliments. He also started watching Frozen on repeat, sometimes even when I wasn't around. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then he began requesting we watch it every time we hung out. I'd try to suggest other movies or activities, but Jake always insisted on watching Frozen again. One day, he sent me a link to an Elsa cosplay group online and asked if I would consider dressing up like her for fun. I laughed it off and said no, but he seemed really excited at the idea. His obsession was growing, but I told myself it was harmless and that Jake was just really into this movie. Maybe it was nostalgia or a guilty pleasure. I was curious but didn't want to overthink it. As the weeks passed, Jake's fixation on Elsa turned into a full obsession. He started buying more and more merchandise, everything from mugs and figurines to Elsa dolls, and even a replica of her signature blue dress. His room slowly transformed into what I can only describe as a shrine to Elsa. At first, I found it amusing. I joked with him about worshipping the Ice Queen, but deep down, I felt uneasy. Our dates began to revolve around Frozen. Instead of going out, Jake preferred to stay in and watch the movie. Again, he memorized every song and line and expected me to sing along with him. When I didn't know the words, he'd get visibly disappointed or frustrated. It felt like the movie had become more important to him than spending genuine time with me. One evening, I suggested we try something new, a dinner out or a hike, but Jake shut me down quickly. "Why do that when we can just watch Frozen again?" he said, almost annoyed. His insistence made me feel trapped. but I kept quiet because I cared about him. Things got weirder when he started asking me to dress more like Elsa. At first, it was subtle, a light blue sweater or a braid in my hair. But soon he wanted me to fully transform. He begged me to bleach my hair blonde and braid it like Elsa's signature style. I was reluctant because my hair was naturally dark, and bleaching it felt drastic. But Jake was persistent, saying how perfect I would look. He even bought makeup and showed me how to apply purple eyeshadow like Elsa's. He wanted me to look exactly like her whenever I visited his apartment. At one point, he sent me a list of clothing items I needed to buy: an ice blue top that showed cleavage, white shorts, and a ton of silver jewelry. I felt uncomfortable, but went along with it because I didn't want to upset him. What scared me the most was how controlling he became. If I refused or hesitated, Jake would sulk or give me the silent treatment for days. He expected me to be his Elsa doll, not his girlfriend. It wasn't about love anymore. It felt like I was a project for him to mold. Despite the red flags, I stayed. I told myself I could handle it because I loved him, but deep down, I was losing myself, bit by bit, to the cold shadow of Elsa's frozen kingdom. One evening, Jake sat me down and told me he wanted me to dye my hair blonde. He said it was the only way I could truly become Elsa. At first, I thought he was joking, maybe testing how far he could push me. But when he looked serious, I realized he wasn't. His eyes were filled with excitement, but there was an edge to his voice that made me uneasy. "I want you to do it," he said firmly. "It's part of the whole thing. You have to look the part." I hesitated. My hair was naturally dark brown, and I loved it that way. The thought of bleaching it scared me. The damage it could cause, the time it would take to grow back if I hated it. I told him I wasn't sure, that I needed time to think. Jake didn't like that. His frustration was clear. "Why can't you just do it for me?" he said, his voice sharp. "If you love me, you'd want to make me happy." The guilt hit me. He was right. I loved him, and if changing my hair would bring him joy, maybe I should do it. But a small voice in my head whispered that this wasn't right. From that point on, his demands didn't stop. He wanted me to wear Elsa-style clothes every time I came over. Flowy blue tops, sparkly accessories, even the same kind of makeup Elsa wore in the movie. He bought me eyeshadows and lipsticks that matched Elsa's look and insisted I use them. If I resisted or forgot to wear something Elsa approved, Jake would pout or withdraw affection. Sometimes he'd guilt-trip me, saying, "You don't care about me if you don't try." Other times, he'd go silent for hours, making me feel like I was walking on eggshells. His control grew heavier, disguised as love or devotion. He claimed he was helping me unlock a side of myself I didn't know existed, but I felt less like a person and more like a costume in a twisted play. Every day, his obsession tightened its grip, and I felt smaller, trapped in a role I never auditioned for. As Jake's demands grew, I found myself caught in a confusing web of emotions. I loved him deeply, but I also felt like I was losing myself. The woman he wanted me to be, the Elsa lookalike, was someone I didn't recognize. It was like I was fading into a frozen shadow. I felt isolated. I stopped talking about my feelings with friends because I was embarrassed and afraid they'd think Jake was strange. Our friends noticed the change in me, how I became quieter, less lively, but I couldn't explain why. The tension between Jake and me was intense. One night, I remember sitting across from him, tears streaming down my face as I tried to tell him I was scared. I said, "Jake, this isn't me. I don't want to lose myself trying to be someone I'm not. He looked at me coldly. His expression, I think this would make us stronger. But it doesn't, I replied, voice trembling. It's tearing me apart. I'm not Elsa. I'm me. And I need you to accept that. Or I can't stay. His expression hardened. You're selfish. You don't love me enough to try. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I stood firm. I love myself enough to know this isn't healthy. I'm choosing me. He pleaded, we can fix this. I'll stop the obsession. Just don't leave. But I'd made up my mind. It's too late. I'm leaving. Not because I hate you, but because I love myself more. Watching him fall silent, the weight of the moment hit me. The man I loved was still there, but so was a side of him I couldn't accept. Saying goodbye was heartbreaking, but necessary. After leaving Jake, the silence was strange. At first, painful, but slowly it became healing. I began to find myself again, the woman beyond the blue dresses and fake blonde hair. I reconnected with old friends and talked openly about what I'd been through. Their support reminded me I wasn't alone. Most importantly, I learned that love shouldn't feel like losing your identity. I started setting healthier boundaries, trusting my instincts more. I realized that red flags, no matter how small, matter. Obsession disguised as affection is still control, and it's not love. My journey wasn't perfect. There were days when doubt crept in, when I questioned if I'd been too harsh. But with every step forward, I grew stronger. Now, I want others to know that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. If you feel trapped, listen to that voice inside. You deserve love that lets you be you. When I shared my story on Reddit, the responses poured in. Some were shocked by Jake's obsession, calling it a red flag they wished they'd seen sooner. Others offered support and encouragement, thanking me for speaking out. There were humorous comments too, joking about the Elsa transformation and reminding me I should have at least gotten some royalties for all that makeup. Reading those replies reminded me how important it is to share our stories, to raise awareness about toxic behavior hidden behind love. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but to help anyone else feeling lost in a relationship that demands they change who they are. You're not alone, and you deserve better.